that's better. A bit of light. Now, I am hoping I'm live. Had a few issues with Facebook changing some of their settings, so I am approaching this from a slightly different angle. Had to try YouTube live for a couple of weeks, but that also didn't work out for me. I just don't like the control settings and how you actually work live. Now, I have a image on my screen telling me that I am actually live, and it's telling me that comments will appear somewhere here, but it's not telling me if anybody is watching. So I'm just going to go for it and see what happens. Nothing ventured, nothing gained sometimes, I think. So if you are watching me live on Facebook on Tuesday, thank you for joining me. Today is the 8th of March and it's International Women's Day, and I wanted to celebrate International Women's Day by making a very special card that just is feminine, kind of just celebrates being a woman really. And I just had this idea of merging these two stamp sets, and so yeah, I'm really excited to show you it. If you've seen my post on Instagram already, you'll have seen an image of it, but I'm just really excited to be making today. So I'm still not getting any comments. If you are watching, please could you just say hi in the comments? That would be most wonderful, because I'm really not sure if I'm live or not, and I don't know how to check, to be fair, because I never use two devices. I'm just going to reach for a drink. Now I got a pop-up message. Oh yes, I can see. Hurrah, hurrah, fantastic. So I am live. I can see Sue is watching. That is wonderful. Thank you. Brill. And I think, if I'm right, I think Sue may struggle to actually type comments, so that's great. I can just at least see one person is watching, so I know I'm live, because this is a different way of me actually instigating my Facebook Live. I won't bore you with the tech details, but I did seek some technical advice, and so yes, I'm hoping that this is going to work. So let me do my proper introduction. Hi, I'm Izzy Shashinsky, and I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator here in the UK, in the north of the UK, well, in the Midlands. I always say in the north because I'm actually from the north, and then I moved slightly south. I'm in the middle of the UK, I'm in Nottinghamshire. I've had a little bit of a cold for the last few days, and it's left me a little bit sort of dry, so I've got a drink. I'm just going to move the cup of tea out of the way before I knock that one over. So yeah, so if I'm kind of just swallowing, I've just had a strepsil. I don't need any sympathy, I'm fine, I'm absolutely fine. It's just a bit irritating. So welcome to my lunchtime live on Tuesday the 8th of March, International Women's Day, and we will be celebrating by making this fab female inspired card. But before we do that, I will of course share with you my golden moments from the last week, and I have 3 brilliant golden moments for you from the last week. On Wednesday evening last week, I had my very first in-person class, public in-person class, since the beginning of the pandemic. When the pandemic hit, I obviously stopped in-person classes in hired spaces. I have had a couple of gatherings when restrictions allowed, just at home, just a couple of people, but I've not put on a public in-person craft class for 2 years or thereabouts. So it was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful, and I will just briefly show you the cards that we made in that class when I flip my camera around. But I absolutely loved it. I felt a bit nervous, to be honest, but it was brilliant. My second golden moment was on Saturday. I spent some time in the garden. It was bitterly cold, but I got really wrapped up. I was suffering a little bit with this cold, but the fresh air did me the world of good. I got really wrapped up and I went a bit mad chopping things down, to be honest. So that was great. It was a golden moment for me. And yesterday I had a fabulous day. Spent the majority of the day with my best buddy Alison, and we went for a walk through Rufford Park. It's in Nottinghamshire. It's not too far from where I live, about half an hour away, and Rufford Abbey. And the park grounds are superb. It's just a really lovely walk through mixed parkland, and there is a tea shop with cake. Oops. And there is also a small plant sales place, so we always love going there, and we bought a couple of bits and pieces. That was a lovely day yesterday. So I'm going to swing my camera round, so bear with me. I just pop my reading glasses and I can make sure I press the right button. So let's do this. Let's just whiz this over. Let's get this camera in the right position. I'm going to use my laminated grid sheet today. I've got a bit of reflection, so I'm hoping that that's not going to be too troublesome. And just a reminder that that's where you can find me online to shop and join. And follow me please on social media. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You just need to search at Izzy's Crafty Bees. Now I'm thinking that my camera looks like it's hunting for focus, maybe because of this reflection. Let's just see. I'll keep my eye on that, and if it becomes troublesome I'll just swap for a paper grid sheet. It's not a problem. So let me share with you the cards, 3 cards that we made on Wednesday at craft class. So I designed my class to be all about punches, and these were the cards that we made. Really quite simple, not much technique, using the hedgehog punch and stamp set bundle. We used, oh, I've forgotten the name of the stamp set. Let me just glance to my shelf. Just talk amongst yourselves. Why is it not leaping off the shelf at me? Oh, it's there. Flowers of Friendship and the matching punch. And this was kind of fancy fold, not fancy fold, if you know what I mean. Just something a bit different. And a little tiny bit of colouring in. Excuse me. And then a nice daisy punch, because we love the daisy punch. We've also got a punch label, and then we use the new sprig punch to create these layered leaves as well. So quite straightforward for our first in-person class back here in Retford. And I'm just going to share with you one special offer at the moment. We've got a couple of special offers on, but I'm not going to bombard you. I'll mention a couple of things as we go along. Again, visit my website, because all of the special offers are right up front on the homepage. So we've got savings in bloom throughout March, and the biggest, it's 20% off, but the biggest thing is that it's all coordinated. So we've got the mini machine with 20% off, and then we've got a whole selection of bundles with 20% off. And I'm just trying to remember which one is returning. Is it Art Gallery and Celebrate? Oh, we've got 3. Art Gallery, Celebrate Sunflowers and Garden Wishes are returning as bundles. They are currently available in the annual catalogue, but as standalone stamp set and dies. So they've actually brought them back as a bundle just for March. So this is just for the month of March, this offer. You don't have to purchase the machine to be able to purchase any of these bundles. So if there's a bundle that you spot, or you wished you'd got one of these 3 while they were a bundle and you missed out, then grab them now with 20% off as well. So yeah, fantastic. Right, I'm going to pop that to one side. I am just going to take a little sip of my drink. I'm going to cover that glare up. Like I say, I've just got this little catch in my throat, but I'm sure I'll be fine. So this is the card I want to share with you. It's a fancy fold, and it's the stuff, I can never remember if this is the zigzag tiered fold, but it's quite simple actually. Oh, hi there, Shaz. It's quite a simple one to cut and score, so I am actually going to cut and score this one. I've not pre-done it today, so that's why I've chosen just to do one card. And I wanted to do the vinyl records from the In the Record stamp set. Now this is a super stamp set. I'm going to just show you it. Cover. Super stamp set. I had to buy this as soon as I saw it in the mini catalogue, because as some of you might know, my husband is really into hi-fi and actually runs a small business to do with acoustics and hi-fi equipment, and we're both music fans, so I can't just say he loves his vinyl, because I love my music as well, and I love playing my vinyl. We sometimes have vinyl listening evenings on a Friday, and I'll post on my Facebook page what we're listening to. And I thought I made him a really cool card for his birthday. I'm going to show you that. It's just here. Just sneak that in. I'll show you that in a sec. But I thought it'd be really lovely to celebrate International Women's Day by making this card, because us chicks like to listen to our music too. And when I started thinking about it, I had the Corinne Bailey Rae song in my head. Girl, put your records on. I shall save you the pain of me singing it to you. But it just came into my head, and that's kind of partly the inspiration. But this is my hubby's card that I made him for his birthday. So I made him an LP, a single, and his favourite music, Monster Mash and Kung Fu Fighting, just a joke between us. And then I told him what my favourite record was. Look, it's a record player. So he's my favourite song, bless. Now, I copied this from several demonstrators that I saw, mostly US demonstrators. So I did copy the style of pop-up card, and there is a die set somewhere on the market, but it's not a Stampin' Up die set that you can make this arm. And I thought, well, I don't need a die to make an arm, so I used a small retired circle punch and just a piece of silver foil, and just invented my own arm. So there you go. So that's one for the guys, but I want to share this. So let's, without further ado, let me just move my notebook and get myself organised here. So I'm going to bring in my trimmer, because we're going to make the base card first, and I will have to pop that to one side and create some space for myself. I'm going to remain standing for the moment. So I've used some polished pink for my base card, actually. I was intending using Magenta Madness, as it's a retired vivid pink. I wanted a hot pink or a bright pink. I didn't sort of want a sugar pink like Blushing Bride, for example. So but in the end, my blends, when I'd coloured in my lovely lady, I didn't like the colour. I've actually used Melon Mambo to colour her top in, and I didn't like the Melon Mambo with Magenta Madness, so I switched out for Polished Pink. Anyway, because I want this card to actually go in one of our new slimline envelopes, this was the starting point for my measuring. So I measured the envelope, which is 10 centimetres across. So I've reduced the card width by 0.5 centimetre. So I want my finished card width to be 9.5 centimetres. So I had to do, and I'm going to have to do it again with my calculator because I'm absolutely pants at maths. 9.5 times 3, 28.5 centimetres. So that's how I started with my card base. So I have to extend my measuring leg, which you now can't see, and I can't move that. Let me just move that up a little bit. I'll just keep moving the camera a little bit and we'll see. So 28.5 is my finished width, full width of the cardstock. So I needed to just trim off a smidge. So I've got this smidge trimmed off, and now I need to score it at 9.5. And I need to score it at 2 9s are 18 and a half, 18 and a half, I think that will be. Let me just check, and I'm just checking under there that that's 9.5. Oh, it should be 19. 9.5. Oh, tell you what, I'm like at maths. Seriously bad at maths, but I'm really good at making cards. So there we go. So we've done 2 scores, so now I've got my tri-fold card, and we can fold it. So I want it to go back and forth, so I want it to go back and forth like so. And now I want to create that zigzag, and it's not difficult. What I did, initially I had imagined that my woman would fit here. And so I what I did was, grab the stamp, coming back, sorry, I'm not talking down to my feet. I kind of got the stamp and offered it up to the card and looked roughly how tall this front piece needed to be. Now luckily, if I bring my finished card back in, I've got this large record on the front, and luckily that's exactly the same size, because I actually ended up going with a circle for my girl too. So that's how I kind of designed it. So I popped my stamp on, decided how tall that needed to be, which is roughly the sort of size of my block, so about 7 centimeters. I think this one's slightly smaller. No, it isn't, 7 centimeters, I remember now. So I'm turning my card base around and looking at 7 centimeters. Oh, that was it. That was what I did. Sorry, I'm mumbling to myself. Turned my card around and I looked at 7 centimeters on my wrong side. Oh my goodness, if I could get this right, you would be amazed. I didn't do it that way at all. I think I used this guide. Did I use this guide? I wanted to show you how I did it using my trimmer as a guide. That was it. So I need to measure 7 centimeters up this side, and I think I just flipped it over upside down and used my trimmer to measure 7, pencil mark, and then what you need to do is put that pencil mark onto your cutting track, and this corner, I'm just checking whether you can see everything. I don't think you can. I might have to move that up a little bit rather than move the camera. So I've got my pencil mark. Can you see this on camera? Yes, pencil mark here into the cutting track, and this last fold here into the cutting track, and lay the cutting guide down, and then we're going to trim that entire section off. So let me just run through that again, because I feel like I just muttered and mumbled and waffled about that. So you just need to decide when you're making this card what kind of surface area you want on the front, because you could have that large, I could have had this measurement here larger or even smaller. Does that make sense? So I decided I wanted 7. Of course I could mark it with a ruler, but I wanted to show you that you've got a measuring guide here on your trimmer, and you've also got a measuring guide there. So you need to, on your free edge, not the folded edge, of your front of the card, measure your 7 centimeters. Then open it out fully, have your mark in the cutting guide, and it may well be that you need to lift this corner above. Again, it's just slightly too big for the camera angle. You may need to lift this corner just above this top bit, but have that mark in the cutting guide, and then also have this top corner in your cutting guide. Now I'm wondering actually, and I hope you don't think that I'm taking up far too much time, but if I close that and turn my trim around, would that help? It may help with the camera, but it may not help with your brain if you hold your trimmer the other way. So by trimming from the front up to this top corner, you leave the back of the card entirely intact, and when you fold that back over, you get that lovely kind of waterfall or zigzag effect. So that's how I did my card base. The other things that I need, we'll get on and do some stamping. Let me just see. Now, let me move my camera back down a little bit, and then I'm not leaning right forward. Great stuff. Okay. I'm also just checking whether the camera's hunting to focus, whether I need to bring a paper grid up front. So the other things that we need to make this card, I mentioned the skinny envelope that I'm going to use, so that's from our Slimline Envelopes pack. and they're a pack of 15, and you get 5 in white, 5 in soft succulent, and 5 in smoky slate. And I think I'm actually going to use the white one for this card when we're finished. I need some white, basic white cardstock for stamping our woman on. I need some basic grey cardstock, just a smidge from my scrap bin, just for the sentiment. I'm going to need some black, basic black cardstock to stamp the vinyl records, and I've gone ahead and stamped one and heat embossed it. And I'm also going to decorate with some of our new shimmery paper. I'm going to just pull those 2 sheets out. Now this is, let me read the back for you. Supple Shimmer. It's new in the January to June mini, and you get 2 sheets of 12 by 12, and it's actually I think it says in the catalogue in blue and pink. I think they're quite non-descriptive colours, and as you can see, the colour in the catalogue does not represent the colour that actually arrives. This is more, I would describe this, for people who are aware of Stampin' Up colours, this is more pool party than blue, and the pink is a really lovely pink. What I love about this shimmer paper is, different to our glimmer paper that we've had in the past, is it absolutely doesn't shed. It's really lovely, and it is very supple. So I'm going to use a few bits of that just to decorate. So let me get on. I think I will actually, just looking at the focusing, just remove that laminated sheet, and we'll go with a paper grid sheet for the stamping. Okay, I'm going to take a seat, and I will glance at the comments from time to time, but not stay focused on them. So first thing I'm going to do is actually decorate my card blank, and you can see that I have just added some floral decoration underneath. And when I open this piece, just some floral decoration and this geometric stamp as well, just to add some background interest. When I was designing this card, that was actually, believe it or not, the hardest bit to decide, because I started with some layers of DSP underneath. It looked way too fussy and too heavy, too much. I then thought about, well, I could take a piece of coordinating coloured cardstock and I could emboss it and stick that on. Again, it just felt too much, so I thought we'll go very subtle and we'll just have a bit of a feminine but kind of a funky vibe going on. That's what I was aiming for anyway. So let's take the card blank. First thing I'm going to do is burnish those score lines a little bit further, just to get those creases nice. And then the next thing I'm going to do is rub out that ugly pencil mark. I'll get rid of that. And then I'm going to bring in my layering masks, Butterflies and Flowers layering decorative masks, and I'm going to use the floral layering mask. And I can just see it's covered in embossing powder. So I'm going to just use my favourite tool just to get rid of that embossing powder. So one thing that drives me crazy when I've been doing heat embossing is the embossing powder is everywhere. I'm going to use a blending brush. I don't know why I'm leaning over, because I've got my box of, so I'm using the For the Record stamp set, and I'm using the In the Moment stamp set, and I'm going to use some beautiful polished pink ink. So let's get our polished pink ink out, and I am going to just create a sort of like a swathe of flowers. I don't want it to be completely covered all over this base card. And you can see, I mean, one of the things I always say is if you can't see it, it's not there. And it's a shame that it's covered up, but you can just see that masked background just peeping through there. And when the card is standing, if you're viewing it sort of from this side, you catch a glimpse, and inside you catch a glimpse. So I'm going to go ahead and just create that swathe. Now what I did to do that was I opened up my card, and we'll start with the inside, and I'm just going to lay down my mask with my blending brush, pick up some of that polished pink ink. I'm going to just tap it off just to soften it so I don't get these big blobs. And I'm just going to hold the mask in place. I'm not going to tape it down or do anything too dramatic. And I'm just going to swirl that brush and bring it down in a kind of a snaky sort of area. I'm just going to describe it as that. I'm going to snake my brush down so I get this kind of really lovely loose, it's faded to the sides, really easy to create. And I'm not bothered about the bottom because I will put a white insert for writing a greeting in. Now I need to think about where do I want the pattern next, and I do want the pattern on the front piece, so we'll leave the card laid open, fully open like this, and we'll do the same for the front. So pick up some ink on my blending brush, just lay the mask across the front, just give it a bit of a tap, and then start to just swirl that brush down the mask in a kind of a swathe, a snaking swathe of floral wonderfulness. You can all giggle at me, I don't mind. So we've just got that little bit of a pattern for the background. Now the next part that we want for the front is this bit here. So we need to open up the card on the opposite side and we need to focus on this piece. So it's just a bit of thinking about which of the surfaces are we actually decorating. And I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm going to lay this down. Now this time I'm going to actually look, if we look inside, we know we're going to adhere something to the top of that piece, so I'm going to bring my swathe of flowers all the way to the bottom. So what I can do is I can either just lay it down and just start anywhere I like up at the top, or I could turn it the opposite way round if I found that that was easier, and I can start from the top and swirl that colour through that mask in a sort of snaking fashion, in a swathe, and let's make a swathe of those flowers. And let's see what we've got. There we are, we've got that lovely sort of swathe of flowers coming down that centrepiece. I'm not worried about this gap at the top because we will be covering that with our girl. So I'll pop my mask to one side and pop my blending brush to one side, and we finished with that polished pink ink. So we'll close the lid, make sure our ink pads don't dry. So now we've got our card base decorated with the flowers. I now want to show you this stamp with that geometric pattern, and that's included in the For the Record stamp set. And I just thought that would be quite fun to add another piece of patterned interest to the card, and I used basic grey. So let's get that ink pad out. So we'll use basic grey, and I want to first of all pop a line. Let me get myself organised here. Pop a line of that pattern just along this edge here. So I'm going to ink my stamp, tap, tap, tap. Now you'll notice this stamp doesn't fit into the ink pad, so I'm moving it around, making sure I've got good coverage. And for ease, I'm turning it around this way, and I'm going to line it up. Actually, it's not easy when you can't get your head over, so I'm going to just stand up. And I'm going to just look at the edge of the stamp. Now if I turn that over, you can see the actual pattern is closer to this edge than it is close to that edge of the red rubber. So I think I'll actually flip it over, and we'll go with the edge where the pattern is closer to the edge of the red rubber, and I'm going to just look through the block and line that up with the edge of the paper. And I'm going to hope that that's somewhere near lined because I can't see with my head behind the camera, and it's not bad. I'm happy with that, just a tiny gap. Again, it's not the focal point of the card, so I'm not going to stress about it. The focal point of the card is the girl and the greeting, the sentiment. I want to stamp that image along that full edge of the middle piece of my card. Now on my original you can see the join. This time what I might do, I'm just thinking about seeing whether I can have that join somewhere near the top, so I'm just going to measure that. I can probably get that a little bit nearer the top. So I think that that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to aim to join that at the top because it's a difficult one to join up. Obviously if I was using Stamperators it wouldn't be difficult, but I don't see the point in using Stamperators for this project. Now the other thing to consider is that my card is leaping off the desk. Can you see how that is leaping up to meet the stamp because I've got that score line. So I've just bent the card back towards me to release the memory of the card, to stop it from leaping up towards the stamp. And again, I'm going to check that I'm using the edge where the image is closest to the edge of the red rubber. And I'm going to try and just line that up with that score line. And we'll see what that stamp's like. Not bad at all. So we'll just ink the stamp again. And we'll see how closely we can match this up. Oh, much better. So I'm much happier with that one. I can barely see the join. Well, that went well to say we're live on air. So that's some of my background stamping completed. And I'm pretty happy with that. It just gives the card base a bit more interest. Oh, hi Mum. You're back from swimming. Yay. You'll be able to, I'm going to upload this video. I'm so glad that we're actually working again on Facebook. I had just technical rubbish that goes on. Anyway, I asked for some technical help from some of the other Stampin' Up demos and I got really an interesting answer, which I'm not going to bore you with because it is technical. So I've gone about this in a slightly different way. I've actually accessed Facebook Live from a different angle and it seems to be working. So the next thing I want to do is actually create all the pieces that I'm going to use to decorate the finished card with. So I want to create 3 records. Now the stamp is one size and I've cut what I'm going to say is an LP and 2 singles using the same stamp. Really easy. I just use 2 different layering circle dies to make the smaller ones. So I'm actually going to stamp and heat emboss 3 of the records. I've gone ahead and done 1 of them, and the reason I went ahead and did that was because on my original card I heat embossed in black and I wondered what difference it would be heat embossing in clear, and the answer is that just my clear embossing powder even for some reason just seems to stick a bit better than the black embossing powder. No idea why. So I've inked my stamp with Versamark ink and I'm just going to stamp that down. Should have used my embossing buddy and didn't, but hey, doesn't matter because we're cutting out. I'll tell you why it doesn't matter. So embossing buddy is used to remove static and grease from your clean cardstock, and you will see why that's useful when we come to do the sentiment. But for this piece it doesn't matter if I get any bits sort of around the edge because we're going to actually die cut it. So I've covered that with clear embossing powder and tipped the excess back into the tub. And I'm going to give that an extra flick from behind because there was some more excess that hadn't popped off. Now you can see how the clear embossing powder has stuck nicely to the sticky ink of Versamark, and I'm going to go ahead and heat that up to melt the embossing powder. I'm just using my heat tool. We'll just give that a moment to warm up. The other reason I chose to use the clear embossing powder was because actually on camera you'll be able to see this melt a lot easier than watching the black. So I'm just getting everything warmed up. And then you'll be able to see the embossing powder turn from powder to melted plastic. and you'll be able to see that image forming. In fact, I can heat it from underneath. You'll be able to see that from underneath as well. So the heat source is just underneath the cardstock. It doesn't matter whether you go on top or underneath. Try and stop wiggling that. Let me see if I can stand up and do that nearer the camera. There we go. One good reason to heat from underneath is that the air from the heat gun doesn't actually blow away any of the embossing powder. So I'm going to do exactly the same again. So I'm going to use my clear Versamark ink and just ink that stamp all over. And just like any other ink pad, you can re-ink the Versamark, because if you've got a Versamark ink pad and it's feeling a bit dry, you can actually buy re-inker and add some fresh sticky ink to your Versamark pad. I'm just going to make sure that has good contact, so I've got plenty of ink in contact with the cardstock. I'll just move that to one side and I'll add some more clear embossing powder. Just going to try and move that around without spilling it all over the place. See if I can just scoop a bit more of that out. That's grand, I've got good coverage there. Let's put the lid back on my tub and we'll go again and we'll just melt that. Oh, hi Sylvia, hi Lorna. Oh Lorna, you made it just in time for your favourite thing. So I'm heating it from underneath. I've got my heat gun and I'm just heating it from underneath. Just for the wow factor on camera. But like I said, if you heat from underneath, it stops the powder from blowing off. If you've got a heat gun that blows out hot air, which the majority of them do. I think there are a couple on the market that are less blowy than the others. But there we go. The Stampin' Up heat tool has two settings. It has a low setting, which is really useful for vellum, and the high setting, which I've just used on cardstock. So there we go. We've got our heat embossed 3 records. I'm hoping that if I move them around in the light, you can see how lovely they are. Also reminds me of licorice. Ooh, who loves a bit of licorice? Now I'm going to cut these out using the layering circle dies. So if I just grab those. Ooh. So I've got my layering circle dies and I'm going to use the largest one, but I'm also going to use, let me just see which size. 1, 2, 3. It's the 4th largest one. And I'm going to make a couple of singles. I'm going to use my mini Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine just because it fits on my desk and it's on special offer during March. So I wanted to remind you that you can get the machine during March with 20% off. And so I'm just cutting those down so they'll fit through the mini machine. And let's bring mini in. So regular cutting platform. So I'm going to do one with the largest circle. You can see my cardstock's really bouncy because it's got that curl from the heat. So I'm going to just take care and make sure I've got that lined up. I'm going to stagger my plates and just wind that through. Minnie's got a squeak. So that's my big record die cut. Now I'm going to cut 2 small records, so 2 singles, and I think that big one did just move a little bit, so I'm just going to persuade that piece of card to lay a bit flatter, because when card gets heated or bent, it has a memory unlike me, who forgets things. So let's just pop that through. That's it, good and staggered. And now we've got a single. How cute! Oh, what was that fell down? And we'll just do our last one here, exactly the same. I'm just looking to make sure that that's kind of central and lined up. Pop that in. Give that a wind to get it going. And there we go. There we go. So we've got 2 singles and an LP. How marvellous. So the next thing we need to do is we're going to stamp our girl, and I'm going to colour her in. So I'll just bring in the original card just as a reminder. I've got my card base now. And I've got my 3 records, my LP and my 2 singles. I can pop those to one side, and I'm going to stamp our girl and colour her in using Stampin Blends. But first of all I want to actually cut a circle using the large circle die, the same size as the LP, and I'm going to stamp that on the circle. I'm not going to am I going to stamp the girl first? No, I'm actually going to cut the circle first. I was just thinking of how I actually did the original. Where's my top plate hiding? I will stamp, gosh, get my words. I will cut my circle first. I'm just going to trim this piece of cardstock down so it'll fit through the mini. Now I do think that this large circle die is perhaps on the limit of the size of dies to put through the mini, but it fits through, so it's going through. And it's just scooted to one side. Sorry for the faff, everyone. I do apologise, but we need this right, so I'm going to... That's grand. There we go. I've got my large circle to stamp my girl on. The reason I was hesitating about whether to stamp first and then die cut was because it's usually it is the usual rule of thumb to stamp your image first and then die cut, or stamp and then punch your image, simply because you can see better how to line things up once you've got your stamped image. But to be honest, I just decided that it would be fine to cut the piece and then stamp it. So I'm going to make sure I'm well inked with my Memento. So I'm using Memento Tuxedo Black because I'm going to colour with blends, and I wanted to colour with blends to show you how easy they are to use, really, that the technique is not difficult. Oh, I can't see because my head's not over the piece. I'm just going to go for it, and I'm going to stamp our contemplative lady. I think she has got her favourite album on. I wonder what it is. What do we think she's listening to? She's got herself a nice brew. I reckon she's got a nice cup of Yorkshire tea, and she's sitting on the windowsill, and I think she is looking at the sunset. It's the end of a busy day, and she's looking at the sun setting with a mug of steaming tea. She's got her favourite record on, and I wonder what it is. So I want you to tell me what your favourite album is. What's your go-to chill out album that you would put on if you've got yourself a mug of tea and you're watching the sun go down? And I'll cut my big box of blends. When I'd finished colouring this in, I thought, how many blends have I used? For goodness sake. So here we go. Blends come in packs of 2, so you get a dark and a light of each shade. And for some of these I've used both the dark and the light, and for some of this colouring I haven't. Let me see which is which here. Because sometimes I've got actually 2 packs. So that's Pool Party. I don't know why I've got all of those out. That's Pool Party. There we go. Now I'm going to start with her skin, and for that one I'm using Ivory. And I want to also mention that we have an early release of product on the market at the moment, so not in any of the catalogues. You'll need to go to my website to find it, and it's part of a bundle of products. I think it's called All Together, but you'll find these new blends. We've got a whole range of brand new skin tone blends, and they are fantastic. They will be in the new annual catalogue when that launches, but they're not available in any of the catalogues at the moment, but you can get them on early release if you go to the website, and they come in packs of 2, I think. But unlike the packs of 2 of regular colours where there is a light and a dark of each shade, they're actually skin tones. So for example, we've got Granny Apple Green here, and we've got a dark and a light. But with the new skin tones, they actually come in sort of skin tone as if you were buying makeup. So they'll come in, I can't remember the names of them, and I didn't print off the leaflet. That's really naughty of me. But they come in something like medium, dark, I can't remember what they're called, but they are really super, and they are on order at the moment for me. Not got them yet. Now I'm just going in with Petal Pink just to add a little tiny bit of shade, and I'm wondering whether the camera's even picking that up, so I'm not going to labour too much on that. All I've done is added a tiny little bit of extra shading. But I want to now, before I go in with the rest of the girl, I'm going to go and colour her background, and I'm going to use Crumb Cake. I don't know why I picked that one up. Light and dark Crumb Cake, and I'm going to first of all cover the window seat that she's on, and I'm using the brush end to start with, and I'm just going to go straight across really quickly. I'm not taking any trouble with this whatsoever. I'm literally going across, and then when I get to the bottom, I'm just going to sort of scribble it out. I'm not bothered about those edges. Now I'm going to go in and add a bit of shade. So again, with the brush end, I'm just going to go around underneath her bottom, a little tiny bit where she might be casting a shadow, underneath those cushions and her feet. And that is it for shade. I'm going to go back with the light one, because these are called blends, and I'm going to blend that edge out. So just by going over, it merges that shadow into the light. I'll just try and hold that up and hope that that focuses. And it's as easy as that using these blends. I have seen demonstrators using the blends and really taking a lot of time, showing fancy techniques. Absolutely brilliant. If you're an avid crafter and you want lots of fancy techniques and you want really kind of fancy finishes, then that's fine. But actually it might be quite off-putting to your casual crafter, someone who's trying blends for the first time. I don't want you to be put off by these alcohol markers because they're just so simple to use. I just went in with Crumb Cake and did the window frame. Really easy to do. I'm going to do the sky now, so I'm going to take, I think for this one I'm going to take Pool Party, light and dark, and I will try and create another sunset. So I'm going to first of all go in with light. Now I think my Pool Party has been well used, and when you really well use your blends, Stampin' Up! Blends, the brush end does go fluffy and it makes it a bit harder to use. So I'm going to just, and it looks a bit patchy, but I'm just going to go in and kind of kiddie colour in those larger areas as much as I can with that pretty scruffy end. Now, you might be forgiven for thinking, well, that's a bit rubbish, it just looks a bit rubbish, that tip, it's all scruffy, but it still colours. I'm now going to switch to my pointy end and just go in around those edges. The great thing about blends is that you don't get those lines that you do with felt tip pens. The colour just blends in to itself, so I can go in these finer areas now that I couldn't get with that brush end and just add that colour. And I'm doing it really quickly, I'm not taking any kind of massive care or bother about it. And I'm not even going to use the dark pool party. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to try and create that sunset again like I did on my original card. Let's just bring that in and show you. So I'm going to use some orange colours near the bottom and go back up with some yellow tones and a bit of rosy, sort of pinky in the sky. So I'm going to go with dark pumpkin pie, and just in this bottom bit here, just add a little bit of that. Dot there, and maybe over this side just behind her back, a little bit down here, and we'll think that that's where the sunset's kind of happening. I'm going to blend that upwards with some Calypso Coral. Let's just see what colour that is. It's a little bit darker. We'll just add a bit of that fire in the sky with a bit of Calypso Coral. To bring that up here a bit. Oh, I'm beginning to feel a bit like Bob Ross. I hope I don't send you to sleep. We'll go with a bit of light Calypso Coral. Let's see what that does. Does it make it glow? And we can, because the blends, we can blend them together. It's not like one stripe, you know, one stripe and then another stripe on top and then another stripe. Oh, let's use the brush end. We can actually blend the colours together and they should start to fade one into the other. Probably doesn't behave quite so well on grid sheet, but we can blend them all together. Now let's come in with some dark. Oh, look at the state of that. My dark Daffodil Delight. So I think what we might do is ignore. Let's have a go with that end. It's really messy. It still works. And the other thing you can do when they get to that stage, there's plenty of ink. You see, there's plenty of alcohol ink left in the side. Now just let me get a piece of scrap paper. We can actually trim the ends. You can just give it a haircut. Don't be afraid. It's not going to be as bullet tip as it was when it arrived. Now I just need to make sure I clean that off my scissors. But you know, we're all crafters and we need to use our equipment and not be afraid of using it, and not just think that it's broken when it's not broken. These blends are consumable items. They're not designed to last absolutely forever. They're not designed to be refilled, the blends. They're designed to be used, and so let's use them. Now I'm just putting a tiny bit of that darker yellow there because I want to start to blend upwards that sunset. And we'll go in with that lighter, maybe that lighter. Again, I'm working pretty quickly there, and we'll finish off that sunset with a bit of that petal pink. You know when you get that lovely sort of apricot tone in the sky? And we'll just add some of those reflections up there in the sky as well. You know, sometimes when the sky looks like it's on fire, I love that. Blend all of that together. And I'm going to just grab my light Pool Party again and blend that bit of rosy that I've just popped in the sky. There, she's watching that lovely sunset. So really quite quick to do that background. I'm going to now just go in and colour the girl. Let's give her a brunette hairdo. So I'm going to use the bronze, which was originally designed as the darker skin tone. I'll just pop her some bronze brunette hair, but I will give her, with some dark Calypso Coral, let's give her some coppery highlights. Maybe she's just come back from the hairdressers. I'll give her a few coppery highlights. I'll go in with a bit of crumb cake as well, just some tone on tone. So you can get some really nice results. I'm going to give her hair clasp a bit of gold. And I'm going to give her some light blue jeans. Now, which colour did we use? So I used Balmy Blue, light Balmy Blue for her jeans, and I used Night of Navy for the cushion. So we'll go in and do the cushions first. So Night of Navy cushions, just because my cushions in my living room are navy. Who knew? Now this will just dry a little bit lighter, and I'm going to put a bit of shade with the dark. There. I don't think the camera will pick that up because sometimes the detail is lost on camera, but I will hold it up when I've finished. So I'm going to give her some washed jeans, faded jeans. So what does Corinne Bailey Rae sing? Sapphire or faded jeans? I hope you get your dreams. So she's got her faded jeans on today. So all over with light Balmy Blue. Now, Stampin' Up, marvellous. They give us some idea as to where to put some shading. So these creases in her jeans, bit of shading. Underneath her bottom it's going to be shadowy. So we'll just put a bit of darker Balmy Blue, maybe underneath her top, a bit of shadow underneath that leg there, and maybe the back leg is slightly darker. And that's as much shading as I'm going to do, but I'm going to go back in, remember, and just blend that out using the lighter one. So by going over it, I'm just blending those edges out. And immediately we get some really lovely shading on there. So where's my box that I had on my blends? Let's just try and pop some of these away now. Just get them off my desk. Give myself a bit of elbow room. Now we're going to finish off with that top and her mug. So I'm going to use Melon Mambo, even though our card base is polished pink. Gosh, I'd think then. Brain gone. So I'm going to start again with light Melon Mambo and just colour all over. I'm just taking care now not to go outside the edges. That's all the time I'm taking. Just stay within the edges, but it really couldn't be easier. It's just like kiddie colouring. You should not be afraid of having a go with alcohol markers because they are so easy to use. I'm going to go in with the thin end of the darker shade, just go over those creases in the fabric quickly. Then maybe underneath her arm, a bit of shadow. Maybe just down here where her arm is casting a bit of shadow. We'll just add in maybe the arm that's nearest the window is a bit darker. We'll blend that out again with the lighter shade just by scribbling over it. And that's it. Nothing more difficult. Let's finish off. We'll give her a green mug. Granny apple green. And just for the sake of a bit of shade. And blend that shading out. That's all we're doing. Now, ensure that that mug of tea is quite hot. So I'm going to just use my light smoky slate, and I'm just going to give it a bit of steam coming off. That's all. I will hold that up so you can see it, just for a bit of effect. So here we are, the finished sunset. You can see the light and shade of the jeans, a little bit of steam coming off the mug. There we go. So that's our girl finished. Hopefully that's inspired you to think about using your alcohol markers and not being afraid of them. So what have we got left to do? We've got a sentiment to do. So I've got some basic grey, a scrap of basic grey from my scrap bin, and I'm going to use a sentiment from the actual for the record stamp set. I was just going to use Happy Birthday. I might use You're Awesome actually. Let's celebrate the awesome ladies in our lives. Let me just swap that one out. As it's International Women's Day, let's make a card. I'm going to make this card for someone who I think is awesome. And I might just send it in the post. So I'm going to go back with Versamite. Before I do any of that, I will talk about my embossing buddy, because I didn't do it on the record. So I'm going all over this piece of grey with my embossing buddy, which is just to take away the static so I don't get any blobs. I'm going to ink up the stamp You're Awesome, and I'm going to stamp it pretty much in the middle. And that just remember, that is a scrap of grey. I'm not being overly wasteful. Oh look, I've done the classic what not to do. So tap tap tap, not CPR, and I have CPR'd this stamp, and I've got ink along this edge here, and I've pressed down too hard. Now I'm going to have to use my emergency side, because there's no good tipping embossing powder onto this because it will stick on that. So we're going to use the emergency side. Let's embossing buddy it again. Just before I go any further, I'm going to have a drink because I'm a bit dry. Oh, sorry about that. It's just the remnants of that bit of a cold. So tap, 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 not CPR. And then straight down, a bit of pressure and no rock and roll. And that's one of the dangers with these thin, slim sentiments. I'm still not happy about that. But I'm going to go with it. I'm not entirely happy with that. I'm not sure. I'm not convinced that the top of that sentiment has come out. But do you know what? I'm going to use a die to cut it. Let's see. I've got enough space there, so I will actually just stamp that again. Let's do it. If it's going to be right, let's do it right. Oh, we'll get there in the end. Tap, tap, tap. Yes, that is one of the things with the sentiments that are small and thin. There's a tendency to rock and roll, or a danger, not a tendency, a danger of rocking and rolling and getting smudged sentiments. So it is worth just taking a bit of time. Now this time I'm using white embossing powder. Let me just see if I can scoop enough up on a spoon. There's me. I keep the tubs in there. I never pour it back in, so a spoonful, just sprinkle that on. Tap, tap, tap. There we go. And I'm going to run this through the mini machine. Now, this die is from a set we used the other week with a matching hybrid embossing folder. So the Bouquet of Love dies that come with the Bouquet of Love embossing folder. There are these two wonderful big heart shapes, a leaf shape, two cute labels, and then we also have these really sweet flowers. I really love these flowers. They're almost like quite free. They remind me of Magic Roundabout in Florence for some reason, because they're, I don't know, they're just cute. Anyway, I'm faffing because I'm sitting down. So I'm going to just run this through the mini machine. Oh no, I'm not. I'm going to heat and emboss it first. What am I like? Oh, engage brain. So yes, I've got my embossing powder on. Let's actually heat it up. I was a step ahead of myself. There we go. The heat's coming now. Let me heat it from underneath. Woo! Oh, I was racing ahead then. There we go. Now we can cut it out. Silly Billy. And for this one, I'm going to just pop a tiny bit of washi on, because I might use a post-it sticker because I've got a couple there. These tiny post-it stickers, just because it's a bit springy. A little bit springy. My platform, my base plate. Oh, that's not working, is it? Let's get a bigger post-it. My base plate's a bit springy. Let's get a slightly bigger post-it. My base plate's a bit springy, and the card is a bit springy because it's been heated, so it's got a bit of a crease. There we go. There we go. And that'll just hold it steady. It's like having an extra pair of hands. And we obviously don't want hands going through the machine. Ooh, that would be fun, wouldn't it? So there we are. We've got our sentiment. I'll just pop the die to one side. Now I'm going to cut a whole bunch of those cute flowers, so I'll just bring my dies in. So there's 3. There should actually be another. There's 4. 2 big and 2 small. And I'm going to use a snip of this gorgeous supple shimmer. And when I say a snip, I'm just guessing, just chopping a chunk off. Did I hear somebody have a sharp intake of breath then when I just chopped that glimmer paper, that shimmery paper? Yes, well, it is for using. I have to use it up. So just before I put that down, I'm going to flip my plate just to stop it from spinning. I'm going to pop one piece on, and I'm going to put all 4 of those little flowers on. And I'm going to just run that through. Go on, off you go. Just chuck those out. Come on. I've got those 4 little flowers in. I'm going to call it Pool Party, and they do stick to the plate. Let's pop those over there. And we'll do the same with the pink piece of shimmer. I do love my machine for just sitting down here, my little one. I do personally tend to use my big machine perhaps far more than the mini machine, just because I am fortunate to have the space in my craft room to have a dedicated area for die cutting. And my machine. Let me just see what's going on there. Let's get you going. Come on. Come on. Oh, I do need to stand up. Let me just get that lined up a bit better. Just bring that down the plate a bit. There we go. Yeah, because I'm lucky enough to have a dedicated area in my craft room. I have both machines set up. in that dedicated area, and I just grab the big machine before the mini machine. But I do love it. Oh, I've got one with the glimmer still stuck in. I do love it for just having it right next, you know, right in front of me on the desk, sat down. So that's cool. I can move that away now. I think that's all the die cutting done. Now I've just got one piece that stayed behind in the die, so I'm just going to release that. These little holes on the back of the die are release holes, so you can use a pokey tool, and it's always worth, if there's bits left in, like I know I've got a couple of bits left in the die, this one has that bit in the centre, always worth making sure you clear all of your dies. If you get if you have dies that are really detailed and for some reason there's bits not cutting properly, chances are it's because there's a stray piece being left in the actual die and it stops the pressure, so that's something to watch out for. Right, we can assemble this card now. So we'll look at the original and have a look at this composition. So we did have options, or I had options. I could have put my girl down here and then popped the records sort of, you know, like this in a collection. Wouldn't look terrible. I felt that that was quite a lot of black together. I've got a very curly record there. Let me just see if I can straighten that out. Here's my bone folder. Again, that's the heat that's curled the cardstock. And if you just use your bone folder, you can correct that. I felt that was quite a lot of black together, and actually I felt that by moving the girl up at the top, we could allow her to stand above that diagonal line as well, so that circle can actually protrude above the top of that, and then we could allow for a big record there and a smaller record there, just joining everything up, and I preferred that composition personally. And then we'll join it all together by popping our sentiment across the middle. Now we could have put the sentiment down here, we could have put the sentiment up here, but I felt that the eye needs to be drawn to the focal point, which is the image, and by moving the sentiment to actually touch that circle, that just brings it all together, and your eye kind of naturally flows but is drawn back to the focal point, the image and the message that we want to give the recipient. And then we accessorise with the bits of glimmer and it all pulls together. So let's get on and assemble. So the first thing, I'm going to work from the bottom up. The first thing I want to stick down is this big record at the bottom, and again I'm going to use multi-purpose liquid glue just all over the back, plenty but not too much. Now in the middle of these records there is a love heart, which I'm not drawing attention to for this card because it would detract the eye from the focal point, which is our lovely lady. But you could, if you were using this stamp set on another card, you could draw attention to that love heart, and you could punch it, you could fussy cut it, you could stamp it on another piece of cardstock and fussy cut it and stick it back on top. Now I want to I want to stick this single record above the LP, but I want to raise it up on dimensionals, and I want it so it protrudes above this diagonal cut line. Now the way I did that was, instead of using glue, I'm going to use my black mini dimensionals, and I'm just going to sort of note roughly where we go. I'm going to pop a couple of mini dimensionals just there, so one here on the card, not on the record, and one there. Before I peel the backing off, checking that they're in the right sort of place, that they're not too wide, and I can pop one here as well. Let's just pop that backing back on. It's just come off in my hand, and we know that that's not going to be outside of the record. Now the reason I did that was just to stop me from sticking them to the back, then flipping it over and then being in the wrong place. It's very easy to do. I can tell you it's very easy to do because I actually did it on my original and ended up snipping it off to move it. So now I want to decide how much I want overlapping this one and how much I want protruding. I'm quite happy with that. And we can pop that down. So now we can see we've got some dimension and we've got some protrusions. That makes that line interesting and it's not all sort of confined. I'm going to stick down this top record so that we're protruding but not protruding the top of the card, but I want to stick this one flat this time. So a way to do that is to have it in place. You can then carefully flip over and with a pencil you can draw a line, just rough. So when you turn it over, you know that you want your glue on this side. Turn it back round and now you can pop your record where you want it. And you shouldn't get any excess glue on the back. Now I want to adhere my girl. And again, I'm going to use glue because she's tucked behind here, so I don't want to raise it up. So we'll just tuck it down. And I'm just going to take note, if I hold that there, that's where I don't want my glue. And if I flip that over, just swap hands, I know that I can put plenty of glue down here. And if I kind of just avoid this little bit here, where my thumb is, that should be enough glue to stick that down. It's all these little things when you are assembling a card. I'm just going to move her over a little bit. Another reason I love Tombow Multipurpose, because I've got that wiggle room. I can just slide her about a bit. Her toes are tucked under, but I can see the vast majority of that image. So we're starting to get somewhere. We're nearly there with this card. We want to finish off with a sentiment. Now I wanted my sentiment to run, actually I'm just going to see, have I got her straight? Is the windowsill running off? Shall we get the spirit level? I wanted my sentiment to be straight, not on an angle, running with the card, and I wanted it to join those circles together. So on this card I had a little bit of the record showing, but actually what looks better to me is if I just lift that up a little bit further, really make sure that that sentiment sort of overlapping this circle, it pulls it all together, it just joins everything up. And I'm going to use dimensionals, so I'm going to pop a couple of dimensionals under here, but I'm going to use a bit of tape glue to hold this down. So once again I'm going to flip over. I know where my dimensionals need to be on this end. The minis are perfect for this. So I know I've got my dimensionals in the right place, and I'm just going to use a tiny bit of tape glue for this end. The reason I'm using tape is because it's sticking to this shiny surface. And the Tombow unfortunately won't stick to the shiny surface just quite as easily as that tape glue. Oh, and I can tell I've been gardening because all my nails are broken. I'm terrible. They look terrible. I want to lift that up a little bit. I wanted to try and sort of cover this white space. Just looks better. So we've pulled it all together. And now we can finish off with those little flowers and our white piece that's going to go inside to write the greeting on. And how we're doing for time. Ooh, been quite a long time. Right, let's get these flowers whacked on. So I'm going to have 3 up at the top because we like everything in 3s. It doesn't matter which 3, but we'll just have 3 up here. Have 1. They're just so sweet. Of course, if you've got a small flower punch, that would work equally well. I was actually looking for this die for the sentiment, and I spotted the flowers in that set and I thought they would work fabulously. Just a bit of fun. And we'll pop some down here. Now I'm wondering if that Tombow will stick to that. Let's have a look. What colours have we got left? I'm not sure whether Tombow will stick to this. I think I used tape glue on the back when I did it. It should stick to it, it's just whether it will dry. And I've not cut as many flowers as I did in the first piece, I don't think. No, I think I probably put that through 3 times, through the machine 3 times. So I'll just use what we've got and cluster them together. Kind of work in little groups of 3. I'll just try and overlap that there, and that brings that together. So we've got a 3 there, and we'll have a 5 over here. Pop that one with that one. That's just not quite sticking, that. There we go. And I'm just going to finish that off with a piece of white inside for writing my greeting, and I'm just going to check the measurements. So I've got some pieces pre-cut that I have in my drawer, and the length is fine, but we just need to take a smidgen off the side. So if we remember, our finished width of the card is 9.5. I'm actually going to take this piece down to 8.5 inside. Ooh, no nails. So we'll just pop this piece inside for writing a greeting. And because I'm going to cover some of this masking up, I'm wondering whether that might be nice to pop some of that masking inside as well. So let's just grab that mask and that blending brush. Where's my ink gone? I didn't put it away. There we are. And we'll just really quickly going to really quickly just pop a little bit of that down there. Only a tiny bit, we don't need to go mad. It just continues that theme inside. It still leaves us enough space to write a nice greeting, and we'll just pop that in. And we can call this card finished, with the exception of the envelope, which I will also decorate really quickly. That's our card finished. So we've got the original and our today's creation. Now, where did I put my envelope? I did have it here somewhere. I buried it. Oh, here we are. So I'm going to just quickly, really quickly decorate the envelope in exactly the same way. I'm going to take this mask, I'm going to take the brush, I'm going to bring back in the ink, and I'm going to put a swathe of those flowers just across. Just like that. We could, remember we've got the fancy flap to the envelope, so we could do that same masking on the flap of the envelope if we wanted to. But I'm just going to have a quick, very quick scoot and tidy up and just pop these two cards. We'll have those side by side and the matching envelope. Let's just put that so we can see that fancy. There we are, and that's our finished cards. Hopefully you've enjoyed that demonstration. Let's move those down on the in shot. Hope you've enjoyed that demonstration, and I hope that that's given you some encouragement to use Stampin Blends actually, and how to merge together two different stamp sets, and not to be afraid of using different stamp sets. Yes, it is a very different card. Thank you, Sylvia. Yeah, you can watch the beginning of the session on catch up. I'm just going to spin the camera back round so I could say goodbye. Bear with me. I'm going to take a seat. Hello. So, yes, thank you for watching today. Let me take my glasses off and I can see the screen a bit better. Thanks for watching today, and I hope you've enjoyed that slightly different card, a fancy fold. merging two different stamp sets that you might not have thought to put together. At first glance, I think the For the Record stamp set might look like it's mainly useful for masculine cards, and I hope I've helped you to step outside of that thought process, and because us chicks like to listen to vinyl too, don't we? And I hope you've enjoyed celebrating International Women's Day with me. I look forward to seeing what you make as well, and if you make anything that you think really celebrates International Women's Day, then please feel free, post your makes on the Crafty Beehive group. And just a quick summary and a quick roundup, don't forget to check my isy'scraftybees.stampinup.net webpage for all of the latest special offers, because at the moment we do have 3 special offers that are non-print, so they're out of publication special offers. So what I mean by that is that they're not in any catalogue. So we've got, for the full month of March, the mini machine and selected bundles on 20% off. We also have a fantastic early release of a selection of products called Waves of the Ocean, really beautiful, and that includes some so the items that are on early release are the stamp set and dies, and included in that offer, while stocks last only, is the designer series paper, some foil papers and some gems, and they will not be in the new catalogue, whereas the stamp set and dies will be in the new catalogue. So do check out the website and have a really good look at those products, get familiar with them, and have a look at how long those offers are on for. And I mentioned the Stampin Blends markers. We've got a fabulous brand new range of skin tones, right from the palest to the darkest skin tones, and those blender pens will be in the new annual catalogue, but they're actually available now to purchase on early release. So do go along and have a look at the website to see what's on offer, because they're out of publication offers. You won't find them in the catalogues. So just go and familiarise yourself with them. So thanks for watching once again. I appreciate it. If you're watching on catch up, then some of the offers may not be valid anymore. And if you are watching on catch up and you're watching on my YouTube channel and you haven't already subscribed, please do give me a subscribe and click the notifications bell. And if you've enjoyed watching the demonstration either on Facebook or on YouTube, then please give me a thumbs up or some kind of reaction to tell me what you think. And you can always put comments and I will reply back. Thank you very much. Now I want you all to go and craft. Go and make some good stuff. Happy International Women's Day, everyone. Lots of love from me. Bye.